fourth quarter, but not right now. Here is the Kings plus or minus by quarter in the 6 games since Malik Monk has entered the starting lineup. The first quarter, plus 11. Second quarter, plus 19. Third quarter, plus 40. Fourth quarter, plus 5. And if you take the Jazz game out, where they destroyed Utah, the Kings are minus 8 in the other 5 games. All right. The 38-point third quarter Friday, led by DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis, was their 5th highest scoring quarter of the season. All 5 have come in the last 6 games since Malik Monk went into the starting lineup. So let's get some theories out here. What are you seeing in the fourth quarter? What are you seeing? What do you think it is? Because the easiest question is, well, it's hot potato. And you have 2 clutch players who De'Aaron won the award. DeMar DeRozan is always a close runner-up. And Malik Monk, who shared that duty with De'Aaron last season. So now that you have all 3 of them on the court, is there, and you had that all season, right? Malik has been closing really since the start of the season. Keon, I think, closed a couple games, but most of the time it's been Malik. So maybe some of the rotations are different with Malik starting, but what is happening with the Kings in the fourth quarter, and how do you fix it?
Just a quick note before we continue the conversation. Brennan Nunez now is confirming that Keegan is questionable. He just tweeted it out. So, yes, Keegan is questionable tonight with left ankle soreness.
Keegan is questionable, and Kevin Huerter is now listed as out. O-U-T, out.
That one was more of a formality than it was a question.
Right.
But they put him out before they even got to the final injury report.
So there you have it. No Kevin Huerter and possibly no Keegan Murray. That changes things, Kyle. It really does.
That it does. Back to the conversation about the fourth quarter. Sacramento hasn't been doing anything that stands out to me as like, this is what's gone wrong in the fourth quarter necessarily. Because thinking back to these games since then, you had the Spurs game, the first one, back, what was that now, 2 Sundays ago, where they jumped out to 42 points right away, and then they gave it up at the back end, and that was difficult. But after that, the Kings have been 4-1 in those games. It's just they've now become, strangely, a third quarter team. I think that's the more interesting takeaway than what's gone wrong in the fourth quarter, is just they've been a great third quarter team this year. In fact, one of the best third quarter teams in the league. So I don't know exactly what's gone wrong in the fourth quarter per se, because there's not something I'm looking at that's like, this is not right or this is not going well. There was the one game, I think it was Memphis, where Fox had no made buckets in the fourth quarter and DeRozan had 2 points, but I think Fox, Monk, and DeRozan is still one of the best quote-unquote clutch lineups you're going to find in the fourth. I think there's a bigger question about them figuring out just how to play with each other.
Yeah, and I know they're doing less of the DHO and they're adding more wrinkles, but it does turn into, at the end of the game, hey, we've been doing this all game, but now it's, hey, DeRozan go shoot and De'Aaron go shoot, which has worked from time to time. But there have been times where, and I continue to talk about this game, where De'Aaron didn't shoot for essentially all of the fourth quarter, and it's time to tie the ball game up, and De'Aaron is still the star of the team, and De'Aaron takes a shot, and he hasn't taken a shot in 8 minutes. You know, so I don't know. It's just something that's going to take more time. I think I'm willing to say that that's probably the biggest situation or understanding that I would have of this thing just needs more time, specifically the starting lineup. Even though they've been closing, the fact that Malik is starting now does affect it in some way. So I'm not necessarily worried about it, but again, you're going to deal with everything that you've dealt with throughout the game, and now you get to the fourth quarter, and it's getting real tight, right? 916 is bringing up that Grizzly game where it was just a lot of DeRozan, and he did get Ja kicked out, but that was more of what we saw at the beginning of the season, where it can get a bit stagnant, and obviously DeRozan is getting his, but then the ball goes to Keegan, who hasn't shot the basketball in a long time, or Malik Monk or De'Aaron Fox. So in the fourth quarter, it's a little bit different because you're not really trying to get other guys going. You're going with the hot hand. But if you were to say big deal, little deal, no deal, I would say right now it's a little deal because they're winning.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a big deal in Memphis.
I think it's an interesting trend because that +5 since they made the switch to the starting lineup, that's still good for 11th in the NBA during that stretch. It's not like they're a bad fourth quarter team. It's just before November 30th, I believe they were 4th in the league in fourth quarter scoring, and now they're down to 7th, right? So they were 4th before they made the lineup switch, and now they're down to 11th. And I understand making the argument we need a larger sample size to determine if this is a trend or something different, but it's just an interesting phenomenon that the Kings were an excellent fourth quarter team, and now they're down to an above average fourth quarter team, being buoyed a little bit by the beat down of the Jazz on what was that, last Sunday. So it's an interesting phenomenon to pay attention to as we go along. Because again, 6 games is a sample size. I'd argue I would prefer to have like a 15-game sample size, but the Kings don't have a 15-game sample size with any lineup at this point.
Year. Can't keep guys on the court. And if you're just now joining us, Kevin Huerter listed as out. Okay, and Keegan Murray is listed as questionable with an ankle. So we are keeping an eye on that. And when we hear more, we will let you know. Let's get to that Kings versus Nuggets preview on the other side. Allen Stiles, Sactown Sports.
You never know what you might hear when listening to